say very good afternoon to Helen West. Helen, how are you?
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Now, listen, I'm sorry to hear you having to work for Thames Water, but that's quite a challenge you've taken on there, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it's a good challenge because they're really evolving and moving forward as a company and looking for diversity of thought. Hence,
yes.
I'm
Well, you see, now that's the kind of diversity I like to hear. Diversity of thought, I think, is one of those things that I could absolutely get involved with here at the Independent Republic. So tell us, first of all, about your military career, why you got into it, how you decided to get into military career.
Yeah, so I'll correct Hugh, actually, firstly, because I wasn't the first ever female. I was probably the youngest, but there was a cohort of us that went through at the start of 1991. And that's when I joined. I actually joined for other reasons. I was interested in engineering, but also I was a sports person. I get told if you go into the military, you'll be able to do your sport at a high level and get paid for it. Okay. So I was like, I'm in. I'm sold.
And what was your sport? What was your speciality?
Yeah, at the time it was judo and it was athletics.
Okay.
And I was allowed to continue that in the military as well. So
right.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And so were you? So the training comes first, and then you were still doing all the sport during the period.
Yeah. So the training, actually sport took a back seat while I did my apprenticeship, but right. So joined the military in 1991 as part of the Women's Royal Army Corps, which was disbanded in, I think it was 1993. So we were one of the last kind of cohorts to go through there as well.
Right.
And then we were renamed as, we were women privates, then we were renamed to craftsmen. Which was great, and we started our apprenticeship as an automotive engineer. From there, moved to my first posting in Germany, where I met my future husband as well.
Yeah.
Had some deployments to Canada, and I think everybody that's in the military will know that going to Canada and Batis, that's where it hones your skills and really focuses you. That's the hardest work you'll ever do in your life. Really? Apart from actually being on tour.
Right.
So went there a few times throughout my career. I've been to Bosnia in 1993. That was when I was 19. That was the first real deployment on an operational tour. And did a few of those in Bosnia and Croatia, but under different hats. I was United Nations when I went in first. So just whistle-stop tour. I've done tours of Northern Ireland, Iraq and Afghanistan in different roles. But through those years, just promoted through the ranks and got to the pinnacle of my career, which was W1, Artificer Sergeant Major. And that's when I became curious about civilian life and said I need to start preparing myself.
Right.
Part of that process was I was fortunate enough to gain a commission as a captain in the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers and finished my career in aviation.
Yeah. And we talk a lot these days in the private sector and certainly in civilian life, I suppose, about women's success rates in certain jobs and things like that. How did you find it as a woman in the armed forces?
It's been a great chapter in my life, actually, and I think the military is actually more far advanced than a lot of industries that we go into now in terms of bringing people forward, bringing women forward, STEM, etc., and also innovation and technology. I actually, when I was in the military, I thought, oh, we'll be laggards, you know, and it's only now that when I'm in industry and when I went into oil and gas and utilities that I realise now that we are actual trailblazers in the military.
Right.
So I go in and set rigour around companies because the rigour is there in the military. And we actually have standardisation, we continually improve and we're always evolving.
Right.
And I took that for granted.
Yes. So did that help your transition then into sort of civilian life then?
Absolutely. The military actually offers you a lot of preparation for moving into civilian life, but a lot of people don't appreciate the value in that sometimes when you're in, but I had a 10-year plan to prepare myself for civilian life so that I could go in at the right level, but represent myself. Because you have military jargon and you have military qualifications, but how do you transfer all of those qualifications and those vocational things into civilian life? So spent a long time preparing, actually, so that and networking was key, and that's how I met Hugh as well. But it's about what things are of value in the military that are very transferable in civilian life. So part of mine was around preparing myself, but when you get into specific industries, it's not to assume that everybody, for instance, the oil and gas industry, they're a kind of an ageing workforce. Do not underestimate the experience they have, that you can walk in and tell them how to do their job. You need to appreciate that, and you need to sit back and listen, and you need to understand the challenges, etc. And you need to show them, so that you can't just get respect by not doing something. So you need to deliver things. So unfortunately, there was the downturn in oil and gas when I first joined. So things that I was bringing to the table initially, like efficiency, optimizing your business, innovation to make things easier, there was a resistance. However, when the downturn came and a third of the oil and gas industry were made redundant, and it was a double downturn, that was an opportunity for me, and that was an opportunity for change as well. And that sped up the change in oil and gas. And when they moved to how can we use technology, how can we improve what we do to reduce the cost of a barrel of oil, So it's opportunity as well that brings you fortune and moving into different positions, and it's been ready for those. And that's how I ended up in utilities, because unfortunately we had COVID. There was another a real dip in oil and gas and uncertainty. So I thought to myself, it's time to move on, and an opportunity came knocking at the door. Diversity of thought, as I said, Thames Water in particular, but utilities as a whole are looking at how do they evolve. And that's kind of where I've been for the last 3 years. And that has been such an exciting journey, because they are thirsty and hungry for change, and open to it. Whereas I possibly, if I'd went in a few years before, that wasn't the case. So it's opportunity as well.
Right. Brilliant. Well, it sounds like you've had a great career already, but it's obviously going to continue. Helen, thank you very much indeed. We've got to go, unfortunately, otherwise we could probably talk to you for quite a long time.